The emergency beacon wailed like a wounded creature as Marcus Thorne gripped the helm controls of the Meridian, watching his ship's trajectory correcting downward toward the swirling atmosphere of Ethoria. The planet hung before him like a perfect sapphire set within the velvet darkness of space, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly luminescence that made his breath catch. He'd been exploring the Kepler expanse for 3 years, charting remote systems and cataloging phenomena, but nothing had prepared him for the sudden cascade of system failures that had sent him careening toward this mysterious world. "Come on, baby," he whispered to the ship, coaxing every ounce of power from the damaged engines. Sparks showered from the overhead panels, and the hull groaned in protest as atmospheric friction intensified. Marcus had flown through worse, or at least, he'd managed to convince himself of that over countless lonely nights in deep space. His auburn hair was disheveled from running his fingers through it repeatedly, and his steel-gray eyes remained fixed on the navigation display, tracking his descent with practiced precision. The Meridian touched down harder than intended, skidding across a landscape of crystalline sand that caught the light like scattered diamonds. The impact threw Marcus forward against his harness, knocking the wind from his lungs. For several long moments, he sat in the sudden silence that followed, listening to the tick and hiss of cooling metal, feeling his heart gradually return to a normal rhythm. The ship was intact. He was alive. Everything else was secondary. Marcus released his harness and pushed himself up on trembling legs. The viewport showed him an alien world that seemed almost impossibly beautiful towering formations of crystalline rock jutted from the landscape at impossible angles, creating natural architecture that no human engineer could have designed. The sky above was a pale violet, with 2 suns hanging low on the horizon, casting everything in a warm, honeyed light. An ocean stretched behind his landing site, its waters a luminous turquoise that seemed to glow from within, and the spray rising from its surface created a delicate mist that refracted the sunlight into countless rainbows. He moved through the ship to the equipment locker, securing a translation device and an environmental scanner. The scanner indicated breathable atmosphere nitrogen-oxygen mix, surprisingly similar to Earth's own. Temperature readings suggested a comfortable 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Either the planet's conditions were remarkably Earth-like, or fate had delivered him to the only habitable spot within 1,000 light-years. Either way, he had to get the Meridian's communication system functioning. And for that, he needed supplies, minerals, water, perhaps native materials he could repurpose. The sand beneath his boots crunched softly as he descended the landing ramp, the twin suns warming his face. He took a deep breath of alien air. It tasted of salt and something floral, something vaguely sweet that made him think of honeysuckle and rain. It was intoxicating in its novelty. That's when he heard the music dot. It was faint at first, almost a trick of the wind, but as Marcus paused and listened more carefully, he realized it was definitely music, something ethereal and haunting, with notes that seemed to shimmer and dance through the air. It came from the direction of the ocean, from a direction where the crystalline formations created natural alcoves and pathways. Marcus's training suggested he should stay with the ship, document and study this environment methodically, follow protocol. But curiosity had always been stronger in him than caution, and something about that distant melody drew him forward like a moth to flame. He moved toward the sound, his scanner hanging loosely at his side, his hand resting on the emergency beacon, clipped to his belt-old habits from his security days. Before he'd chosen the solitary path of deep space exploration, the path wound between the crystalline formations, and as he followed it, Marcus began to see signs of habitation paths that had been deliberately smoothed and maintained. Markers carved into the crystal faces, what appeared to be gardens in protected alcoves where exotic plants with iridescent leaves grew in carefully arranged patterns. This world was inhabited. Somewhere on Ethoria, There was civilization. The music grew louder, more distinct. It seemed to emanate from a natural amphitheater formed by an enormous semicircle of crystal formations. Marcus approached cautiously, peering around the edge of a massive spire, and what he saw struck him momentarily speechless. A figure stood on a raised platform of smooth stone, silhouetted against the violet sky. The person was humanoid in shape, 2 arms, 2 legs, a human-like torso and head, but there the similarities to anything Marcus had ever encountered ended. The being's skin glowed with an iridescent silver sheen, reflecting the light like moonlight on still water. Their hair was long and seemed to flow like liquid starlight, shifting between silver and pale blue hues. They wore robes of gossamer material that appeared to be woven from something luminous, and the fabric moved like it was alive, rippling and undulating with a grace that made Marcus think of underwater plants caught in a current. The figure was singing, their voice producing those ethereal tones that had drawn Marcus forward. The melody was complex and beautiful, a wordless song that seemed to convey emotion and meaning without requiring language. It spoke of longing, of connection, of something vast and cosmic that Marcus couldn't quite grasp, but felt resonating deep within his chest. As Marcus watched. Transfixed, the singer's head turned, and suddenly they were looking directly at him. Their eyes large, luminous, and an impossible violet color widened with surprise. And the song abruptly cut off, leaving an echo hanging in the air like a ghost of sound. For a moment, neither of them moved. Marcus remained hidden partially behind the crystal formation, aware that he was witnessing something intimate, something not meant for foreign eyes. The Aetherian figure straightened, and Marcus noticed something else beneath the flowing robes. There were patterns of light moving across their skin, intricate designs that seemed to pulse and shift with bioluminescent energy. "Who are you?" The question came in English, or rather in Marcus's language, delivered perfectly by his translation device, picking up the Aetherian speech and converting it in real time. The voice was melodious, pitched somewhere between masculine and feminine, carrying within it overtones that seemed to express curiosity and caution in equal measure. Marcus stepped out from behind the crystal, trying to appear non-threatening. He kept his hands visible and raised them to shoulder height in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "My name is Marcus Thorne," he said slowly, aware that his translation device was rendering his words into the Aetherian language. I'm from very far away. My ship crashed, and I was trying to find help. I didn't mean to intrude on your singing." The Aetherian descended from the platform with fluid grace, moving like they were walking through water rather than air. As they approached, the bioluminescent patterns on their skin became more distinct, elaborate whorls and spirals that seemed to tell some kind of story. They were perhaps a head shorter than Marcus, and as they drew near, he caught the scent again, that sweet, floral fragrance. It was even more intoxicating up close. "I am Kira," the Aetherian said, and Marcus realized with some surprise that Kira's form was distinctly feminine, though not in any way that matched human standards of beauty. Everything about her was elegant and refined, from the delicate points of her ears to the way her fingers tapered into graceful tips. "You are not from this world. That much is obvious. But where then? What star do you hail from?" "Earth," Marcus replied. "A planet called Earth, in a system about 200 light years from here. I'm an explorer. I chart systems, study new worlds, seek out new life forms. I never expected to find ... civilization." Kira finished the sentence for him, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. The bioluminescent patterns on her skin shifted, becoming more complex and brilliant. "Yes, most visitors from beyond the stars expect to find primitive peoples dancing around fires. We are more advanced than we appear, Marcus Thorne of Earth. The way she said his name sent an unexpected flutter through his chest. Marcus found himself studying her more carefully, noting the graceful curve of her cheek, the way the violet light of her eyes seemed to contain infinite depth, the elegant arch of her neck. Without consciously deciding to do so, he found himself moving closer. "You're singing," he said softly. "It was beautiful. I've never heard anything like it." "It is how my people express our innermost feelings," Kira explained. "Words are sometimes too crude an instrument for capturing emotion. Through music and song, we reveal ourselves to each other. We show our truest selves." As if to demonstrate what she meant, Kira raised one hand and drew the edge of her gossamer robe partially aside. Marcus's breath caught in his throat, not out of shock or discomfort, but at what he saw. Beneath the robe, her silver skin was covered in intricate, luminous patterns that were far more elaborate than those visible on her face and arms. The design seemed to pulsate with emotional resonance, and as he watched, the patterns shifted and changed, creating new configurations that expressed concepts and feelings beyond language. "This is how we show trust," Kira said, her voice soft and somehow vulnerable. "By revealing these patterns, by showing someone the light that dwells within us. It is an intimate gesture among my people, reserved only for those we wish to know deeply." Marcus stared at the bioluminescent patterns, understanding on some instinctive level that this was a profound moment of connection. Without overthinking it, he reached out and gently traced one of the glowing spirals with his fingertip. The moment his skin made contact with hers, both of them seemed to freeze. A jolt of electricity, metaphorical, or perhaps not seen, to pass between them. And suddenly the world compressed down to just the two of them, standing on an alien shore beneath twin suns, connected by the simple touch of fingertip to skin. Kira's luminescent patterns flared brilliantly, and her violet eyes widened. "You feel it too," she whispered, a note of wonder in her voice. "This connection. It should not be possible. We are from different worlds, different species. And yet," Marcus repeated, unable to tear his gaze away from hers, "something incredible just happened." The village of Ithori's central settlement emerged from the landscape like something from a dream, its architecture seemingly grown rather than built. The structures were organic in nature, with curved walls that spiraled upward in delicate, flowing arcs. The buildings appeared to be constructed from something crystalline, yet warm to the touch, and they shimmered with an inner light that made the entire village glow softly, even as the twin suns began their descent toward the horizon. Bridges of woven crystal spanning across ravines connected one dwelling to another, creating a three-dimensional network of pathways that turned the entire settlement into a living, breathing organism. Kira had taken Marcus's hand after that first touch by the ocean, and she hadn't let go. Her skin was warm, almost hot against his palm, and he could feel the gentle pulse of her luminescent patterns through their joined hands. She'd led him through winding paths lined with gardens of impossible plants, flowers with petals that seemed to contain tiny galaxies, vines that hummed softly with what sounded like contentment, fruits that glowed from within in shades of amber and rose gold. "The people will be curious about you," Kira said as they approached the village proper. "We do not often receive visitors from the stars. Some may be fearful, others skeptical. You must understand that my people have been isolated from the broader galaxy by choice. We prefer to preserve our culture, to maintain the purity of our ways." Marcus squeezed her hand gently. "Will they disapprove of me? Of this?" He gestured to their intertwined fingers. Kira's luminescent patterns shifted into warm amber tones, and she smiled. "My brother Valen may have reservations. He is protective of me, and the idea of me being drawn to an offworlder will concern him. But my people understand the concept of connection. Even those who fear change can recognize the significance of genuine emotion. They descended into the village square, a circular plaza surrounded by the towering spiral structures. Ethorians emerged from their dwellings, their silver skin gleaming in the fading light. Unlike Kira, these beings displayed a wider range of appearance. Some were taller, others more diminutive. Some had patterns that glowed in shades of blue and green, while others displayed crimson and gold luminescence. All of them paused in their evening activities to stare at the human walking through their settlement holding the hand of one of their own. The whispers started almost immediately, carried on the soft evening breeze in melodious tones that the translation device struggled to properly render. Marcus caught fragments: off-worlder, star traveler, dangerous stranger, and then, more frequently, Kira. Her name seemed to carry significance, and he realized that perhaps his companion was someone of importance among her people. "Come," Kira said, leading him away from the plaza toward one of the larger structures. "My home. My family will want to meet you." The interior of Kira's dwelling was as beautiful as the exterior had suggested. The walls curved in gentle spirals, and everything seemed designed for comfort and beauty rather than mere function. Cushions of soft, luminescent fabric were arranged throughout the space. Plants grew from specially designed alcoves, their exotic foliage creating a living, breathing atmosphere. Through open archways, Marcus caught glimpses of other rooms: a bathing chamber with what appeared to be naturally heated pools, sleeping quarters with beds that seemed to be grown rather than constructed. "Kira," a voice called out, sharp with urgency. A figure emerged from one of the inner chambers, tall and distinctly masculine in form, with sharp features and luminescent patterns of deep blue and silver. His eyes, violet like Kira's, but somehow more intense, fixed on Marcus with an expression that could have been iced over. "What is the meaning of this? Who is this creature?" "Valen," Kira said calmly, though Marcus could feel her hand tense within his. "This is Marcus Thorne. He is from the planet Earth, in the distant Kepler expanse. His ship was damaged, and he came to our world seeking aid. I met him by the Singing Cliffs, and we felt an immediate connection." Valen's luminescent patterns flared in shades of hostile red. "A connection? Kira, this is a stranger, an alien. You cannot simply what?" Kira's own patterns shifted to match her brother's intensity, though hers took on shades of amber and gold rather than red. "Feel something genuine? Connect with someone who might bring understanding to our world? You sound like the council elders, Valen, closed-minded and afraid." "I am protective," Valen said firmly. "As I should be. What do we know of this human? What are his intentions? What if this is some kind of trick to gain our trust before his people come to exploit our world?" Marcus decided it was time to speak for himself. He released Kira's hand slowly and took a step forward, keeping his posture open and non-threatening. "I understand your concerns," he said to Valen, and the translation device rendered his words in the Etherian language with remarkable clarity. "I would have the same concerns if a stranger appeared in my sister's life. But I'm not here to exploit anyone. My ship crashed. I was simply trying to survive. Meeting Kira was—" He paused, searching for the right words. "It was the most extraordinary thing that has ever happened to me." Valen's patterns flickered, becoming less aggressive, though still tinged with skepticism. "Words are easy. Actions reveal truth." "Then I will prove myself through my actions," Marcus said quietly. "I ask only for the opportunity to help repair my ship in time to know your sister better." Over the following days, Marcus began to understand the rhythms and customs of Etherian life. Kira became his guide and teacher, showing him the way her people lived in harmony with their world. The Etherians' entire society, he discovered, was built around the concept of emotional connection and physical intimacy as expressions of That connection dot they would gather in communal spaces, and through a combination of singing, movement, and what appeared to be ritualized touching, they would share their feelings and experiences. It was similar to meditation, combined with something akin to dance therapy, but with a deeply sensual component that went far beyond anything Marcus had encountered in human culture. We are not ashamed of our bodies or our desires, Kira explained to him one morning as they sat in her home's central garden, surrounded by the softly humming plants. To us, the physical expression of emotion is natural and beautiful. When we reveal ourselves to each other, when we touch in the ways of our custom, we are not doing anything sinful or crude. We are communicating on the deepest level possible. Marcus watched as she stood and moved through a series of flowing gestures, her robe moving with her body, sometimes falling away to reveal the luminescent patterns beneath. Her movements were graceful and hypnotic, and as she danced, her patterns shifted through colors that seemed to tell a story of longing and joy in something that looked like love. Is this? Are you doing this for me? Marcus asked softly, understanding that what he was witnessing was significant. Yes, Kira said, coming to rest beside him, her luminescent patterns glowing in warm shades of pink and gold. I am showing you what I feel. I am revealing myself to you, Marcus. I am telling you through my body what my words might fail to express. She took his hand and placed it over her heart, where her luminescent patterns pulsed with brilliant light. Do you understand? Do you feel it? What Marcus felt was a connection so profound, so overwhelming in its intensity, that it nearly brought him to tears. Here was a being from another world, from a completely different evolutionary background, and yet they seemed to share something fundamental and beautiful. Her heartbeat echoed beneath his palm, and he could feel the warmth of her body and the gentle pulse of her luminescence. I feel it, he whispered. I feel you, Kira, and what I feel in return, ... But their moment was interrupted by the arrival of Valen, who stood in the archway with an expression that managed to convey both anger and something that might have been concern. The council wishes to see you both, he said sharply. They have questions about the Offworlder and his intentions toward our people. Marcus and Kira exchanged worried glances. The peaceful harmony they'd found together seemed fragile, threatened by the larger forces of politics and cultural preservation that governed Aetherian society. As they prepared to face the council, Marcus realized that understanding customs was one thing, but gaining acceptance from an entire civilization was something altogether different. The council chamber was a vast, circular room at the top of the tallest spiral structure in the village. 7 Aetherians sat in an arc, their luminescent patterns glowing in combinations of blue, silver, and green colors that seemed to signify wisdom and authority. At the center sat an elderly Aetherian, her silver skin lined with age, her patterns so intricate and detailed that they seemed to contain entire histories. You are the Star Traveler, the elderly Aetherian said without preamble. I am Matriarch Solara, keeper of the council's voice. Tell us, Offworlder, what brings you to Aetheria? And more importantly, what are your intentions toward Kira of the Silver Line? Marcus felt all eyes upon him, and he understood that this moment would determine not only his future with Kira, but the fate of first contact between humanity and the Aetherian people. He took a deep breath and prepared to speak, aware that his words would need to be chosen with the utmost care. Matriarch Solara, Marcus began, his voice steady despite the nervousness coursing through him. I came to Aetheria not by choice, but by circumstance. My ship was damaged, and I crashed on your world seeking survival. I expected to find primitive settlements, or perhaps abandonment. What I found instead was a civilization of extraordinary beauty and wisdom. And what I found in Kira was something far more precious than I could have ever imagined. The council members exchanged glances. their luminescent patterns flickering in patterns that seemed to indicate surprise, or perhaps intrigue. Matriarch Solara's patterns glowed brighter, forming intricate designs that the translation device struggled to fully interpret. But Marcus sensed understanding in her response. "You speak well, Star Traveler," Solara said, "but words can be deceiving. Can you demonstrate your sincerity? Can you show us through the methods of our people that your feelings are genuine?" Marcus felt Kira's hand slip into his, and he looked down at her. She was trembling slightly, and her luminescent patterns were a tumultuous mixture of colors: hope, fear, love, all intertwined. He understood what the matriarch was asking. Among the Ethorians, emotional truth was expressed through physical vulnerability and connection. "I am not Etherian," Marcus said carefully. "My people express emotion differently, but I have learned to understand and respect your customs. If it is acceptable to you, I would try to show you what I feel for Kira." Solara nodded slightly, and the other council members leaned forward with interest. Marcus turned to face Kira fully. He reached out and gently touched her face, his fingers tracing the soft line of her cheekbone. Her violet eyes widened, and her luminescent patterns flared with brilliant light. He let his hand move to her shoulder, then carefully reached for the edge of her gossamer robe, asking permission with his gaze. She nodded, and he drew the fabric aside, revealing the intricate patterns of light that covered her shoulder and upper arm. He leaned down and pressed his forehead against her bare skin, breathing in the sweet, intoxicating scent of her. "I feel this," he said softly, speaking to Kira, but also to the council. "This connection between us transcends species, transcends culture. When I look at her, I see not just beauty, but goodness and intelligence and strength. I see someone I want to know deeply, to understand completely, to cherish for as long as fate allows us to be together." When he pulled back to look at her again, Kira's eyes were glistening with what appeared to be tears, though they had a faint luminescence to them. Her patterns had shifted to soft shades of rose and gold, expressing something that the translation device rendered as overwhelming joy and love. "The Offworlder speaks truth," one of the council members said, their patterns shifting to a warm amber. "I can sense no deception in his words." Nevertheless, another council member interjected, their patterns a cautious blue. "There are complications we must consider. The Star Traveler's people may not accept a union between human and Etherian. His presence here could bring attention from other human colonies, other explorers. We must protect our world." Solara raised a hand, silencing the debate. "These are concerns for another time. For now, let the young ones speak. Kira of the Silver Line, what is your heart's truth? Do you truly feel the connection this Offworlder claims?" Kira stepped forward, still holding Marcus's hand. She was shaking now, and her patterns pulsed with intensity. "Yes, Matriarch. I have felt it since the moment I saw him at the Singing Cliffs. I do not understand how it is possible. He is so different from us, from anything I have known. But when he is near, I feel ... complete, as though I have been searching for something my entire life without knowing what I sought. And I found it in him." She turned to Marcus, and with a boldness that surprised him, she reached for his tunic and pulled it open at the collar, exposing his human skin pale and unmarked by luminescent patterns. She placed her hand over his heart, and her patterns flared brilliantly, bathing them both in their warm glow. "This is my truth," she whispered, "my heart's deepest truth. I love this man." The words hung in the air, and for a moment the council chamber seemed to hold its breath. Then, gradually, the luminescent patterns of the council members began to shift, moving from cautious colors to warmer tones. Even Valen, who had been standing silently at the edge of the chamber, his patterns a defensive blue, seemed to relax slightly. "Love," Solara said thoughtfully, "the most powerful force in any universe." "Very well." You will be permitted to remain on Etheria, Marcus of Earth, under certain conditions. You will respect our customs and our laws. You will aid Kira in her duties to our people. And you will allow us to study your biology and your ship, so that we might better understand your kind. I accept these conditions, Marcus said immediately, relief flooding through him. Furthermore, Solara continued, Kira and Marcus will undergo the bonding ritual. It is the traditional ceremony through which my people formalize romantic unions. If they complete this ritual together, they will be recognized by all Etheria as a legitimate couple. 3 days later, Marcus stood in the luminous temple, a structure far grander than any he had yet seen on Etheria. It was built from pure crystal that seemed to contain the light of 1,000 stars within it. The walls curved upward to a domed ceiling, and bioluminescent vines hung from above, creating an ethereal canopy of shifting light. The floor was smooth and warm beneath his feet, and it seemed to pulse with the same rhythm as his heartbeat. Tavin. An elder who served as the temple's keeper and storyteller approached him. The old Etherean was tall and dignified, his patterns those of deep silver and gold. Are you prepared, star traveler? The bonding ritual is sacred among our people. It requires you to open your heart completely, to allow Kira and the universe itself to see the deepest parts of your soul. I'm ready, Marcus said, and he was surprised to find that he meant it completely. The ceremony began with Tavian's voice rising in song, a melody of haunting beauty that seemed to echo off the crystal walls and resonate within Marcus's very chest. The sound was joined by others' Kira's voice, and the voices of dozens of Etherean women, all singing in perfect harmony. Then Kira emerged from behind a crystal archway, and Marcus's breath caught. She wore no robe, only a delicate decoration of woven crystal that caught and refracted the light. Her luminescent patterns were visible across her entire body, glowing in shades of rose and gold and soft violet. She was the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever seen. As she approached, Kira began to move with a grace that transcended mere dance. Her movements told a story of two worlds, of meeting and connection, of love bridging the impossible gap between the stars. Marcus found himself drawn to meet her halfway across the temple floor. Tavian's song reached a crescendo, and suddenly the elder was no longer alone. The Etherean women formed a circle around Marcus and Kira, swaying and moving with them, their voices interweaving in a harmony so complex and beautiful that Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. The ancient stories tell of star-crossed lovers, Tavian said, his voice now speaking rather than singing, of beings from different worlds who found in each other a connection that transcended all boundaries. Your love, Marcus and Kira, is such a story. You have chosen each other across the vast emptiness of space, across the differences that divide species and worlds. This is the greatest all love that defies logic, that ignores the boundaries of biology and culture, that recognizes in another being the very reason for existence. As Tavian spoke, he began to walk around Marcus and Kira, his aged hands trailing through the air, and wherever his hands passed, the luminescence in the temple intensified. The crystal walls seemed to come alive, pulsing with light, and the bioluminescent vines overhead created patterns of such intricate beauty that they seemed to contain the mysteries of creation itself. In the ancient times, Tavian continued, when our people first learned to form bonds with each other, we discovered that love is the most powerful force in the universe. It can bridge any distance, heal any wound, transform any heart. And when two beings, separated by the vast expanse of stars, find each other and recognize their connection as genuine and true, the universe itself rejoices. Kira reached out and took Marcus's hands, placing them on her shoulders, exposing the most intimate patterns of luminescence that covered her upper back, swirling designs of rose and gold that seemed to tell the story of her entire life. now transformed by love and connection. Her eyes, those beautiful violet eyes, gazed into his with complete vulnerability and trust. "I love you, Marcus Thorne of Earth," she said softly. "I love you with all that I am, with all that I will ever be. I choose you across all boundaries, across all obstacles. I choose you forever." Marcus pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her, his forehead resting against hers. "I love you too, Kira. I have loved you since the moment I heard your song by the ocean. I love everything about you, your grace, your courage, your beautiful heart. I choose you in this world and any other, for as long as we both shall live." Around them, the Aetherian women's voices rose in a final crescendo of song, and the entire temple seemed to shimmer and resonate with the power of their emotion. The luminescence in the temple reached such an intensity that for a moment the entire structure seemed to be made of pure light. In that moment of perfect connection, Marcus felt something he had never experienced before, a sense of belonging so complete and profound that it seemed to redefine what it meant to be alive. When the light faded slightly, Tavian approached them with a smile, his patterns glowing in warm, congratulatory colors. "The bonding is complete. You are now recognized as one by our people, as partners in love and life. May your union bring joy not only to yourselves, but to all the worlds around you." That night, Marcus and Kira returned to her home together. For the first time, they allowed themselves to express their love physically, intimately, in the way of Kira's people. It was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced, tender and passionate, spiritual and physical, a merging of two completely different beings that somehow felt like the most natural thing in the universe. As they lay together afterward, with Kira's luminescent patterns casting soft light across the room, Marcus found himself thinking about the impossible journey that had brought him to this moment. A crashed ship, a chance meeting, and now a love that transcended the boundaries of species and worlds. "I have been thinking," Kira whispered, tracing gentle patterns on his chest. "About the future. About our future." "What have you been thinking?" Marcus asked, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "That our love, this connection between us, could be the beginning of something beautiful for both our peoples. What if humans and Ethorians could learn from each other? What if we could build something together, not just between us, but between our worlds?" Marcus smiled, understanding that what she was suggesting went far beyond romance. It was the possibility of genuine unity between two civilizations, a bridge between the stars built on foundation of love and understanding. "I think," he said softly, "that together we could change the universe." Kira's luminescent patterns flared brilliantly, bathing them both in warm, hopeful light. Outside, the twin suns began to rise over Ethoria, illuminating a new day and all the infinite possibilities it held for two beings who had found each other across the impossible distances of space.